Hey footwear friends, it's Ed Midsole Bud here, back with another banger, this time a new shoe brand, Mount to Coast. This is their R1 model. Some very unique lacing here, simple looks but a very characterful shoe. Let's take a closer look. Thanks for tuning in people, it's always appreciated. Do hit that subscribe button to help me reach 1 million subscribers. Also give this video a thumbs up, like, and share it with your running buddies too. Drop us a comment as well to help fight the algorithm. Dankeschön. A new brand here, Mount to Coast. They fired me over their R1 model for testing. They're not paying me to make this video, and nor will they be vetting my views before my valued viewers get to see them. The R1 here, I guess, is their kind of race model. It's really like an ultra marathon orientated shoe, but I think you can run any distance really. It's pretty comfortable. Quite light for my UK 11 or US 12. It's coming in at 281 grams, so that's about 9.9 ounces if you like that sort of thing. Approximately 39 millimeters of heel stack and 31 in the forefoot. So the company quote about an 8mm drop, and that's exactly what I got here. A nice wide forefoot here with about 12 centimeters at the widest point and about 9.2 centimeters back here in the heel. So there's some decent surface area if you're looking for something for training and racing. The midsole is quite an interesting one. I do believe it's a Pebax based midsole. I've got a Shore Durometer score here of 31 for the outer area of the Outsole foam. The rubber is a slightly softer compound. It registers about 50 on the Shore Durometer scale, so there's quite a bit more give than usual. There is another midsole section included within the main midsole here in the R1. There is another section to the midsole, like an insert really, in the sort of midfoot section of the shoe. It's called Zero Sag. I do believe they've developed it with BASF. It's some sort of polyurethane type section. Whenever I think of polyurethane, I think of like Jordan 4s. That's what tends to make up the outer sort of midsole section there. So I think it's more like a stability or kind of torsional piece really. I could be wrong, but that's what I'm feeling. As usual with my reviews, we'll start off with the upper first. I've had several runs in the R1 and I've kind of formulated my thoughts and broken them down a little bit. I found the shoe to be very comfortable actually. I think it's going to appeal to a lot of people due to the fact that you can vary up the lacing quite considerably here. You've got some very unique forefoot and midfoot lacing options. You can kind of dial it in just right. As you can see here, the first few lace loops have a toggle type lacing system, and then the later ones have got standard lacing. You've also got an additional eyelet as well if you want to do a runner's knot, which is what I've been doing here in the R1. They're a suitable length for any sort of approach really. I think if you've got a narrow foot, a sort of normal or even wider foot, then the R1 will work for you. There's quite a lot of shoes recently that I've tried out that have been very narrow, especially in the toe box area. At least here you've got a little bit of variation, a little bit of configurability I suppose. The engineered mesh used in the R1 is very breathable. There's a reasonable amount of padding back here in the heel. Does remind me a little bit of Nike's Vomero 16. Mount to Coast haven't gone too crazy though on the upper. They've kept it relatively simple, and I think that's actually a really good thing. I do quite like the ankle profile. It does promote some reasonable range of motion there. Sometimes shoes can dig into the ankle a little bit, but yeah, there's none of that here. Once you've dialed it in, it kind of disappears a little bit on foot. Now, this shoe is one that they aim at sort of ultra running, maybe like an ultra marathon or something. Over here in the UK, a lot of those may not be just on road. They might be on like varied terrain, different surfaces. Very much feels though that this shoe is more of a road offering, though at the moment it's only available over in the US. So perhaps ultramarathons there are a little bit more road-based, I'm not sure. They do quote that you can use this shoe between 6-minute miles and 13-minute miles. I've been running sort of like 8 minutes per mile in it, and it feels pretty consistent, I suppose, and steady. I like the mesh here. It's conforming, it's very comfortable. I haven't had any rubbing or anything like that. There's some partial gusseting on the tongue and slight padding in that tongue too, but nothing over the top. I guess the heel section here, certainly the heel counter, is a bit more like a trainer rather than an eraser. I guess you could kind of create this lacing system yourself on any shoe if you wanted to, but they have sectioned up the upper as well. You can see here it does split very slightly, so you've got total control over the amount of pressure over the top of the foot. So they're certainly coming at it from a slightly different angle, one of comfort really, rather than all-out speed and trying to reduce the materials down as much as they can. It's been pretty comfortable so far though. I'm going to give it a 2.6 out of 3. Midsole. Midsole now. Midsole wise, the shoe is certainly on a sort of firmer or sort of more responsive tip. There's no mega squash here, though it is very comfortable, I have to say. It's really consistent and reliable. It doesn't really change over the course of a run. Sometimes you get an overly compressive feel in some of the recent super shoes. This one's certainly coming from a different angle. I'd suggest the foam feels a little bit closer to something like Light Strike Pro from Adidas, so if you like that one, you could really enjoy this. It doesn't have that brittle sinking feeling that you get from Zoom X. It felt good to me at a range of paces, and in fairness, I'm no ultra runner, I'll hold my hands up. I can see the consistency of the foam working well though for that type of use. The foam insert that they've included over the top of the footbed is certainly quite lively, though I do think it suits the actual midsole foam very well. I was quite intrigued to see what the insert section that was part of the midsole was like, this zero sag technology. It feels a little bit more like a stabilizing element, I suppose, rather than some sort of Light Strike Pro insert that you've got in the SL2, for example. The shoe's certainly stable, that's for sure. I wouldn't suggest it's a stability shoe, but it does promote a really nice consistent kind of gait, I suppose. As I mentioned earlier, when I think of polyurethane, I always think of Jordan 4s, and that material isn't the squashiest by any stretch, so I certainly think that that piece is there to act a little bit like a shank. It's certainly comfortable underfoot. I can't say that any of the miles I've run in the shoe have been uncomfortable whatsoever, no discomfort. It's reasonable, it's consistent, and it just felt really good on road and pavements. The other thing I think that people will like about this shoe and the midsole is that it's quite resilient. I think it's going to be quite a durable one. There's very little creasing here, and you're not going to get any tearing in it. It's a very different sort of feel to Zoom X. I guess almost like the foam you've got in some of the Brooks lineup, like the Hyperion Max. So nothing particularly stand out here from the midsole, but you know, it's a consistent performer and that's okay. It's cushioned, but many other shoes are, with a little more propulsion and a slightly more aggressive feel. I'll give it a 2.6 for the midsole so far. Outsole now. Bit of a weird choice here. We've got almost like a foam-like rubber. It's quite a thin application of it as well, and the lugs aren't all that deep. There's kind of 4 sections of that foam rubber stuff here, and it almost covers the whole of the underside of the shoe. On dry surfaces, it gave a good account of itself. I felt in wet conditions it did leave a little bit to be desired. And in the UK, that does happen from time to time. You can go out and the sun is shining, and the next minute you've got torrential rain. I did notice that Mount to Coast are advertising on their site that there will be another version of this shoe available soon. Does appear that that will have a full rubber outsole, and they reckon it will be released later in the year. So decent grip here, nothing majorly outstanding from it. I found cornering was fine. It just seems to prefer certain surfaces over others. Certain parts of UK trails may not really work all that well with this shoe, perhaps if you're running into more technical areas, some perhaps rocky or smooth stones. They could prove to be a little bit of a problem. Gravel too may be a little bit too aggressive for this foam rubber. How long this one holds up remains to be seen, only time will tell. But I have seen some pictures of people using these over like hundreds and hundreds of kilometres and they've been fine. So fine in the dry, some reasonable grip there on toe off, though there are a few places for debris to hide away. I'll give it a 2.5 out of 3 for the outsole so far. So value-wise, these are coming in at $160 in the US. If you convert that right now, that's about 126 quid here in the UK, which is actually a really decent price. It's cheaper than a Pegasus. At present though, only available in the US via the Mount to Coast website. Though they do suggest that they will expand that out a little bit more later in the year. I think the shoe's a really nice put together model. The quality's certainly there out of the box. The build is good. There's no mismatched sections or anything. no dodgy stitching, and like I said, it's an easier to stomach price. No glue seepage, the upper is certainly a well crafted one, and I think a lot of runners could get something out of this one due to that tuned fit system that we've got here in the lacing. There's way more expensive shoes I've picked up this year, like they're well over double the price of this one, that don't have anywhere near the build quality. So at this point, I'm going to give it a 2.6 out of 3 for value on the R1. So if I've totaled the scores up correctly for the Mount to Coast R1, we've got a 10.3 out of 12 after my initial runs. Quality's there, but perhaps not the most fun or exciting ride you're ever going to get, but that might be exactly what you're looking for if you're running some sort of longer distance race on road, if you just want something that's really comfortable and really consistent, though you don't want the weight of some of those maximally cushioned models. Certainly an interesting approach, that's for sure. It's very different to anything I've reviewed in the past. Let me know your thoughts and opinions on this one down in the comments. Quick musical interlude for you. Where I've been watching the European Championships, it got me thinking about national anthems. Really want to get myself a national anthem doorbell. I think that would be quite funny. I can switch them around and really irritate Mrs. Eddbud. It would be worth every penny. One of my favourites though, it's a real banger, has got to be the French national anthem. I think I really like that one due to the film Escape to Victory. You've seen that, right? I mean, you got Sylvester Stallone, you've got Michael Caine and Pelé, and Russell Osmond as well. Let's not forget him. That's a cracking film, and the French national anthem appears quite a bit towards the end of the film. In fact, there's a really brilliant version of the Escape to Victory theme and some of the other bits of music that are featured in the film up on the Apple Music at the moment. There's a really great recreation of the bit where Pelé scores the overhead kick. You know, it's a truly wondrous moment. If you've never watched Escape to Victory, go and do it now. It's a really, really good film. You know, seeing Michael Caine and Sylvester Stallone discussing, you know, where he should stand as a goalkeeper for a corner kick is wonderful television. Okay, that's all for today. I better get me editing hat on and put this all together. Thanks for tuning in, people. Always appreciated. Hit that subscribe button and also give this video a thumbs up like. Drop us a comment as well to help fight the algorithm. My name's Eddbud and I'll be seeing you. All secret end bit and all that. There's a whole load of new shoes that have arrived that I've got to try and get some reviews out for. We've got the Hurricane from Saucony. I got the Triumph 22 from Saucony as well. There's a couple of Reebok models, and I've also got the Puma Deviate Nitro 3 as well. So yeah, that covers us for several weeks, I think. So stay tuned and thanks for your support. It's always appreciated.